Okay, so in this video, I'm going to walk through the exact steps that we're following right now, which helps us to land in the inbox almost every single time. And we've actually surpassed over 1 million emails sent either for ourselves or for our clients. So we know quite a thing or two, and we're able to test quite a lot of things when it comes to email campaigns and sending cold emails. But before I go into it, if you don't know who I am, my name's Ben Lister. I help agency owners, business owners by documenting all my learnings, my findings right here on this YouTube channel, which currently help me to make multi-six figures per year. So the main thing to note here when it comes to actually never landing in the spam again is email health. And what I want to focus on is understanding that if you have email accounts that actually last longer, that don't just die after a few weeks and start to go in the spam after a week or two, then this is not going to only just decrease costs, but it's also going to increase the deliverability of your accounts. Now, the reason for this is if you have an account that is 6 month old that has been sending emails for the last 6 months, then Google or Outlook or whoever's actually receiving these emails are going to know that this is sending from an email, an address, an inbox that has been active for quite a while. And so the chance that this can be spam or this can be some kind of sort of malicious inbox or malicious email is going to be much lower than if something was created yesterday, right? And so if we have email accounts that have been around for quite a while, sometimes 6 months, even a year, then these email accounts need to have quite a lot of bad reputation handled to them in order for them to start dropping off and that email health to start decreasing. And so even if people start clicking, mark as spam, if they've got months and months and months of emails behind them and they've been going for quite a while, then it's very unlikely that these are actually going to start to be marked as spam. The main email account that I have right now, my main domain, is basically like indestructible. Like it's never, ever, ever lands in spam because one, I've never actually sent cold emails, but two, it's been active for like an awful long time, like for a few years now, and I've been sending emails on it like every day for the last few years, and so it's basically got perfect deliverability. And if you can have your cold email accounts reach something like this with combination of actually sending good quality emails and actually having a good warm-up process so they're always warming up, then these email accounts are going to last a very long time and it's going to mean great things for your emails. So once we understand that, then we want to understand how we actually go and do this, how we achieve having these email accounts be, staying in the deliverability pool, in the inbox pool for much, much longer. And one of the ways we do that is through bounce rate. And so the bounce rate goal that we should have is no more than 3%. Now, what this means is that if you send 100 emails and 3 of them bounce, you send them and then they come back to you because it's either a inbox that doesn't actually exist, or maybe you got flagged as spam, or whatever reason it might be. You want this to happen less than 3% of the time. Now, of course, doing this over 100 emails doesn't really make much sense. This needs to be over 1,000, if not 2,000 emails to actually know what your bounce rate currently is. But that's the goal that we're aiming for. Now, the way that we do this is you want to verify your lead list, that the emails actually are correct. Now, if you use emails from Apollo, if you use emails from wherever it is, right, even if you put them into Instantly and they tell you, oh, this email has been verified, never, ever, ever believe them until you've done it from a separate software, through a third party. Now, one of the tools that I like to have is Neverbounce. Now, Neverbounce will just let you add this in here, so you can just add your whole CSV file in there and tell you what percentage it is. Or what you can actually do is just verify singular emails. Now, we don't actually do this all that much because we just clean them all in a big chunk, right? But what we can do here is we can find individual emails and find out if they're actually valid or not. If they're not valid, of course, don't use them because they're going to bounce and that's going to affect your bounce rate. But sometimes it'll say unknown. And if it says unknown, then what we want to do is we want to verify them with a tool called Scrubby. Now, I've tried to find different tools that actually do this, but Scrubby seems to be the only one that actually works. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take the ones that say unknown. I think it's known as the catch-all emails, they're unknown if they're actually going to be verified or not. You run them through Scrubby and basically they will tell you if they have been verified or not. Now, I think you can actually verify emails, like normal emails with Scrubby just from the get-go, but it is a little bit more expensive because obviously it is those actual emails. And so pricing-wise, it isn't too bad at all. It's for 1,000 credits, which you really don't need that many at all, it's $27 a month, right? And obviously, even if you are sending 1,000 emails a month, you're not going to get all of those be catch-all or unknown emails, right? Only a certain percentage of those, maybe a quarter of them, are actually going to be unknown. So then you can just run a quarter of these through here, right? So if you're sending less than 4,000 emails a month, then this plan would actually work for you. You can actually get a crazy big plan for $100 a month. But yeah, that's the kind of the tool that I use to make sure that these emails actually aren't sending and they actually are being verified. So once this is done, every single time that every single time that you go out and send emails, of course, people will be responding to you and saying unsubscribe, not interested, or something like that, right? Now, I would take the emails that are saying unsubscribe or remove me from your list, or they just don't want you to actually email them again, and mark them in your do not contact list. If you use Smart Lead, if you use Instantly, whatever you use, there is an option in there to actually just block these, add them to the block list, right? And so what this will do for that specific campaign or that specific client, it will just make sure that you never actually send them an email again. Every time you upload that lead list, then what it's going to start to do is block those leads, right? So it's not going to add them to the campaign. Now, the reason that we need to do this is because eventually you will start to recycle leads. There isn't unlimited leads in the world. Even if you're in a niche where it's got 100,000 businesses, eventually you will come back around and you will use those emails again. Now, oftentimes you can get away with this because people don't realize that you're the ones that actually are emailing them a second time, because people don't really remember the cold emails they've received, and so people won't really know that you're emailing them for a second time. But what it does mean is that you get that extra layer of protection, because if I email someone in 3 months time after they've already told me don't contact me again, if they remember that, if they know my business, if they've searched for it, if they just really don't like cold email, the first thing they're going to do is mark me as spam, and that's the last thing that we want, simply because once these spam reports just start piling onto the inbox, onto the domain, then the chance of us getting blacklisted, it just becomes ever increasing higher, and it's the last thing that we want. So that's basically how you keep your bounce rate down, and this is super, super important for making sure that the email health rate stays healthy for as long as it can. Next, you want to have plain text emails. Now, if you're not sending links, if you're not sending images, if you're not sending some kind of asset along with your emails, then you do not want to be sending anything other than plain text emails. If you go into Instantly, if you go into Smart Lead, there's an option on your campaign settings that says turn on plain text emails. Now, I originally thought that these would be like really weird emails, and it's just going to be like, a pretty strange experience to receive one of these emails. But it's literally just, if you have it on Gmail, if you have it on Outlook, it literally just looks like an ordinary email, and you can't actually tell that it's plain text as such. But the email providers that are using it, the HTML and the code behind it and all that is way, way, way more simplified. It removes any, it removes any notion that there's link tracking, open tracking, anything like that. And so the email providers are much more likely to accept it because it just looks like an ordinary email sent from an ordinary email provider, right? It's super, super basic. So there's no chance that it's malicious. There's no chance that, someone's going to be sending you some kind of link that's going to download like some malware onto your computer or anything like that. And so they're going to be much more likely to actually put that email into the inbox, and it's less chance of actually going into spam. And so what this means is we're not going to track open rates, we're not going to track link clicks. The reply rate that you are receiving is enough to understand if you're landing in the inbox or not. Because even the best offer in the world or the worst offer in the world, no matter where you are on that scale, you're still going to receive quite a lot of emails from people telling you that they're not interested, there's not the right time, unsubscribe, remove from your list, all that kind of stuff. If you're just not receiving those emails, then you know that you're landing in the spam. And it's very difficult to know the percentage that you're landing in the spam, right? Of course, we have a few systems in place where we go and put emails that we own and we send an email to there. So for example, if we have a list of, 200 emails that we send per day, we might have email 135 and 180 as emails that we own, and then we just check if they landed in the inbox, right? So there is ways to do like that, but the way that you should be tracking if you're landing in the inbox is not through the open rate, simply because it doesn't really work. It's quite unreliable. We've had campaigns that we've run where I know that we're landing in the spam, I know there's something wrong with it, but our open rate is like 75%, and it just makes no sense, right? And we've had campaigns where we're turning the open rate tracking on, we're actually opening up the emails because we're sending it to emails that we own, and it's still not registering it. So it just doesn't work. It's very inconsistent, and to base your deliverability on that, I think is, a little bit misguided. It doesn't really work all that much, and so I would just make sure you turn it off and just stick to the plain text emails just to get that boost in deliverability. Next is going to be the sending volume. Okay, so the sending volume I would recommend per day per account, no more than 50 emails. Now this is including warm-up as well. A good practice to have 25 and 25 warm-up, 25 cold emails, but you can really break this up to how you want. If you really want to go super conservative, you can go 35 warm-up, 15 sending, but if you have the capacity to do something like that, I would recommend actually going below 40 per day, right? So if, for example, if you send 25 warm-up emails per day and then 15 cold emails per day, if you have the capacity and the funds to do that, to have enough inboxes, enough domains to do that while still having a high sending volume, then that would be preferred, simply because you're going pretty far under the radar there, sending out 15 new cold emails a day that aren't getting responded to. I would recommend, if you're doing something like this, bump the warm-up up, the reply rate quite as high. So, people do 60, 70, 80% reply rate sometimes. So it means that if you're sending out 40 emails per day, 25 of those are warm-up, you're probably getting more than 20 replies out of your 40. So to any email provider just looking how many emails are going out and coming back, that's quite a lot that are coming back, based on how many are being sent, right? There's quite a lot that are being replied to. And of course, even if no one responds to your emails at all, it still means you have quite a high reply rate, which is obviously what we're looking for. And then you also want to allow your inboxes to have a cooling down period. Now, this doesn't mean turning the warm-up off. What it means is just turning off cold emails for, a few weeks, maybe a month for certain inboxes, and then turning them back on again. The reason for this is because if you're just constantly going with cold emails, the chance that you're going to get marked as spam is obviously going to go up. And so let's say over a 6-month window, you might have been reported as spam 10, 20 times, right? And so if we then turn this off for a while, the spam rates are going to drop, but the amount of emails that you are receiving and sending on your warm-up is still going to be pretty high. Your reply rate is going to be pretty high too, because obviously we're going to dictate that with the email warm-up that we have. So this cooling down period is really going to help to make sure that emails stay active for quite a long time. And then using specific email providers. Now, there's a lot of debate about do I use Google? Do I use Outlook? Do I use an SMTP provider? What I found is that they all basically work. There's no one system that is really, really good, and there's not one that's really, really bad. Well, I'm sure you can find one that's absolutely terrible. But what I found is that if you just use a range of different providers, then you probably are covered, because oftentimes there's always one of them that's having a bit of issues. People had an issue with Google recently. Outlook also had an issue in the last couple of weeks. And so if you're using just Outlook, just Google, just Namecheap, just an SMTP provider, I can't speak today, then what's going to happen is you're going to have an issue at some point where all of your emails are shut down. But if you have a range of providers, and I'm pretty sure there's an option where you can turn it on Smart Leads, so the Outlook emails sent to Outlooks, Gmail inbox is sent to Gmails, and so on and so forth, then what you're going to do is you're going to have a very consistent amount of opens and a consistent amount of deliverability, right? And so if there is an issue with Google, it's only going to affect 25, maybe 35% of your actual email pool. Same with Outlook, same with SMTP providers. And so what I would recommend is just having a base of different providers, and then just incorporating them in there. There's not really one provider that works well. Obviously, Google and Outlook are kind of the kings, but it's based on a lot of costs and stuff like that, where a lot of people don't use them. And then in terms of product market fit as well, what I want to stress here is that none of what I've said here matters if what you are selling does not resonate with the people that you're trying to sell it to. So if I try to sell, let's say, car insurance, right, to people who are in the cyclists Facebook group, then this is just never going to work, because these people probably don't have cars, they don't use the cars all that much, right? Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I would be much, much better trying to sell car insurance to people who are maybe either a Facebook group, people who have some kind of accident or something like that, right? There's a Facebook group of people who have something specific to do with cars, and I can go and sell car insurance to those people, right? Now, if you're selling, let's say, home improvement leads, right, to all home improvement businesses, you have a specific product market fit there. Maybe it's quite it's quite generalized, right? But if I'm going to target home improvement, I would want to target plumbers, and I'm going to say, look, we have this exact offer for plumbers. We specialize in plumbers. We know how to get plumber leads. And so when I go and reach out to these people, I have a much higher chance of having that product market fit, because the people that I'm reaching out to actually want the thing that I am selling to them. So this is why it's super, super important. It doesn't matter how well you land in the inbox. If you're selling car insurance to cyclists, they are just not going to reply to you, or they're just not going to be interested. You might get people that, also going to say not interested to you and stuff like that, but none of this actually matters, right? So obviously email deliverability is pretty high in the priorities, the list of priorities that you have. But the offer and the targeting is by far the most important thing. If you don't get this right, then it doesn't matter if you're landing in the inbox or not, because the people that you're trying to sell to don't want the thing that you want. But yeah, if you do all this, you'll land in the inbox and you'll never have to worry about spam again. Cheers.